There you go. Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it really bad. So, when you're learning to ride a motorcycle, you'll hear 70-30 braking being thrown around quite a lot by instructors. 70-30 kind of giving you a rough idea of how much pressure you should be applying on the front brake and the rear brake. 70% on the front, 30% on the rear. But more often than not, that's kind of BS. And in today's video, I'm going to show you why. So what I mean by BS, 70-30 braking, when you start looking at these things logically, it starts to make sense. Front brake, look at this. A lot of motorcycles have dual front discs and calipers, okay? This is a 3-piston caliper on both sides. Now this is a sport bike, so it has got probably a better braking system than, or an over-the-top braking system for street riding, but it's generally the same kind of setup. So you've got 2 rotors and 2 calipers on the front, and you've got one teeny tiny piddly little disc and a teeny tiny piddly little brake caliper on the top there. So it kind of stands to reason why you wouldn't use 70% on the front and 30% on the rear. You'd actually be using close to 100% on the front in the vast majority of circumstances. And that's what you should be doing, all right? Whenever you're riding a motorcycle, use your brake, your front brake, a lot more than your rear. The rear brake is really useful when it comes to slow speed maneuvers and things like that, all right? But when it comes to actually stopping you, when it comes to slowing you down, use your front brake more. Now, I'm wondering how many of you watched that Fortnite video. I think it was about the ABS braking myth. So it was about how turning off ABS on your motorcycle might actually be better than leaving it on when it comes to stopping you at an kind of like an emergency brake situation. So it was really interesting though how he demonstrated the way how a motorcycle reacts when you are braking really, really hard with ABS and without ABS. All right. Now let me show you what 70-30 braking feels like, despite the fact that it's kind of arbitrary. All right, here we go. Now I'm not sure if the camera caught that, but the rear wheel totally locked up. Okay, that was hard braking, supposedly 70-30. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but this time just exclusively using the front wheel. Here we go. Alright, I was in control of the bike the entire time and I was using exclusively the front brake. Now the most interesting part about the Fortnite video is he said that apparently in the vast majority of accidents where a rider has to emergency brake, they overuse the rear brake. They use the rear brake too much and it ends up locking the rear tire, and they don't get any extra braking force from using it. They're too afraid to use the front brake. Right? There you go. The front brake. Every time. Get the hang of using the front brake more than the rear brake. It will save you a load of hassle when it comes to emergency braking. Alright? Let's do one more. Alright, I don't know what speed I was doing there. I'm only in first gear here. Alright, but let's go up the hill a little bit. We'll gather up some speed. We'll see if we can get to about 40 mile an hour or so. Now, I'm going to mention this because I nearly failed my motorcycle test. This was back in, bloody hell, what was it, 2008, something like that, 2007. I nearly failed my motorcycle test because I used too much rear brake and it locked it up. Here we go. Right, that was from about 50 mile an hour. All right, and I don't know at which point I started braking, but it was probably no further than well, I don't know, just past that tree there, maybe something like that. Okay, I was able to stop myself within, I'd say 20 meters, 15, 20 meters. And this motorcycle doesn't have ABS brakes, by the way. All right, this is just a normal disc braking system that is 24 years old. All right, let's do it one more time. Here we go. And I can apply more. All right, I am by no means an expert when it comes to emergency braking on a motorcycle, but if there's one thing I do know, using your front brake is going to save you a world of hurt. You go out and ride and focus 100% on braking using your front brake. All right, you go outside and you do that, it's going to kind of hurt you when it comes to doing things like U-turns and stuff like that, because it makes it a lot easier when you're using the rear brake. But getting used to using that front brake in every single circumstance imaginable is always going to benefit you when you do end up getting involved in some kind of accident that could have been prevented if you just use your front brake more. One more try. All right, I'm braking pretty hard there, but I'm still able to keep 100% control of the bike. Sometimes when you're using your rear brake quite a lot, you'll actually feel the back end of the bike lift up like this a little bit. That is perfectly normal, but that's exactly why using your rear brake is futile, because if you are braking really hard, you have got no weight on the rear brake there. So you're not going to be able to apply any sort of brake pressure if there's no weight on the rear brake. The suspension is meant to help with that, but it's not going to help you in an emergency braking situation. And to be fair, even if you are just braking like this, right, so you're braking fairly normally there, that's still enough weight transfer over the front wheel to limit the amount of impact that the rear brake is actually going to have in terms of your stopping distance. Now, I'm by no means anyone that's ever been able to perform an endo before, but if you have got enough brake pressure and you're confident enough doing that, putting on loads and loads of brake pressure, because the one thing that people worry about is locking up the front brake. But let me tell you something, and this is a sticky braking system as well. I haven't got round to rebuilding the front brakes yet on this bike, so they're not actually performing as well as they could. But whenever you apply the front brake, you compress the suspension, so the suspension goes down into the wheel. The wheel transfers that then into the rubber. It compresses the rubber. The more the rubber compresses, the more grip you have. So the more weight you actually force onto the front wheel, the more grip you have and the more stopping power you have. That is why these brakes are so much more powerful than the rear, because there's no point. The weight transfer is going off and away from the rear tire, you know? 70-30 braking has been a bugbear of mine for a very long time, and it's quite malinformed, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. All right, the vast majority of circumstances, you're going to be using 90 to 100% of the stopping power from your front brakes rather than the rear. Using arbitrary numbers like 70-30 encourages riders to use their rear brake more when it comes to slowing themselves down, when they should be using their front brakes more. All right, you will maintain more control of the motorcycle if you use your front brake more than the rear when it comes to slowing you down. When it comes to doing things like slow speed maneuvers, when it comes to doing U-turns, when it comes to doing filtering, using your rear brake is really beneficial, because you don't have to worry about having your fingers on the brake lever as you are trying to maneuver through traffic. There's something less for you to worry about. That's where the rear brake comes in really handy. That's why motorcycles have rear brakes. All right, now whilst we're here, One of the best techniques that I can show you is progressive braking. So what you're doing is that as you are going into an emergency braking situation scenario, you're not doing that. You're not grabbing a handful of brake like this, as it kind of is referred to, grabbing a handful like that. If you don't give the bike a chance to move its weight forward over the front tyre, that is where the front tyre is going to lock up. However, if you do what's known as preloading the brakes, so you put a little bit of pressure on like that, not a lot. I might not even be feeling much brake pressure at this point, but then I quickly apply the front brake. It gives the weight of the bike time to move over the front brake, and you'll find that the more pressure you apply, the more weight transfer you get, and the more you're able to apply brake. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. I mean, I'm not a physicist or anything like that, but mechanically that is how it's supposed to work. And I had an instructor recently say about how you're not supposed to use 2 fingers on the front brake. Apparently they're a CBT instructor. You use 2 fingers on the brake like that. It encourages you to use progressive braking. It encourages you to limit the amount of pressure that you put on the brake. In fact, a lot of the time, less is more. If you do this, you have a lot less control over the amount of pressure that you have on the brake. So get used to using 2 fingers on the brake like this. Trust me, it's standard practice. You find a lot of experienced riders swearing by that braking technique. It's pretty common sense, guys. Pretty common sense. Anyone that's learning to ride a motorcycle, get used to using your front brake more. Right? It's so good. Once you get comfortable and confident using a lot of front brake in a short space of time, it's a lifesaver. And you know, you're able to stop yourself using the front brake, using progressive braking. You're able to stop yourself in a ridiculously short space of time, even though you're doing 50, 60, 70 mile an hour. Right? Honestly, it's the best lesson that I ever had to learn myself, because my instructors never taught me this stuff. Instructors, right, they hardly teach you anything, to be honest, all right? Their job is to get you to pass your test, and once you've passed your test, the rest of it you've got to learn yourself. You know what I mean? Right? And using the front brake is one of those things they do not teach you enough of. They show you how to do emergency braking, when in fact they don't really show you. They kind of tell you and then expect you to be able to do it, because it's kind of like, well, you know how the brakes work on a bike, so you know how to emergency brake. It's that kind of attitude. I'm not speaking for all instructors, but all the instructors that I had never taught anyone properly about emergency braking. Right? It's that straightforward. And if we're being honest, the vast majority of circumstances, you're going to be doing less than 40, 50 mile an hour when you're having to brake hard. Because if you're anticipating it as well, then it makes it a hell of a lot easier, because you're already using a little bit of engine braking. So this is how it's supposed to be done, right? So I've anticipated, now I'm braking hard. Yeah, kind of like that. So the anticipation is coming off the throttle and being prepared to emergency brake. And as soon as I had my hand off the throttle, I had my fingers there ready, already preloading the front brakes, just in case I had to apply more pressure. And that is the best lesson I can teach you when it comes to riding bikes, when it comes to motorcycle safety. This is the best way. All right? Honestly, it is so easy. So easily done, but very easily forgotten. So once these people have moved out of my way, I'm going to show you what it's like when riders make the ultimate mistake and they don't use enough of their front brake and they use way too much rear brake, and that can be anywhere up to and over 30%. All right? Right, they say 30% braking on the rear, it's not possible. And it's so kind of like subjective on the situation, all right? But it's all about your training. If you are trained to use your rear brake more than the front, that's a bad habit, okay? Riders are too afraid to use their front brake these days, and it drives me nuts, because the amount of times that a rider could save themselves from a crash if they just use their front brake more. It's, oh God, it's a no-brainer for me, right? These people, in fact, are still a little bit too close for my liking, but I'll do 2 runs. I'll do one run going up this way, and I'll do another run on the way back. But yeah, rear brake is, oh God, it's, unless you're a really skilled rider, you know how to do things like back-ins and things like that. Rear brake is very difficult to control, and as soon as you've lost control of the back end of the bike, everything else becomes a lot harder. Right, I'm not going to go too fast for this one because I got these people in front. Right, here we go. There you go. And I even stalled the bike. Alright, that is what happens. That is what happens. I hope I caught that because I can smell rubber. But I'll do it going the other way as well. And I'll see if I can, because as soon as the rear brake starts moving, then at that point you're just going to stall the engine. This is at low speed, mind you, as well, alright? Low speed, so you can imagine what it's like doing anything more. Here we go. Right, yeah, that rear brake really locked up on me then. I can feel it. And if you're going any faster than that, it can be a death sentence. Alright, rear brake, when it's used incorrectly, oh man, it can cause you more harm than good. Alright, we'll do one more. We'll go a little bit faster this time. There you go. Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it really bad. It's not leaving any skid marks, but I can feel it locking up. It's not good. Not good at all. Alright. So heed my advice. Alright. Get used to using your front brake more. Don't be afraid of the motorcycle locking up the front wheel and diving to the ground. You practice that progressive braking on the front. Right? You practice that. It will save you all day. Right? And by all means, you can apply the same kind of logic to the rear brake as well. Yeah? But just remember, it's never ever going to give you as much braking, stopping power as the front brake is going to in one of these situations. Alright, so whatever you do, please use the front brake more, guys. Alright, it's a no-brainer, okay? It could save your life one day. Well, everyone, I think it's safe to say that just because you passed your motorcycle test doesn't mean that automatically you are an expert motorcycle rider. It takes years and years of practice to get good at these things, especially when it comes to the emergency braking, when it comes to feeling out the way, how the motorcycle is going to react in particular situations. The only way you can learn that is through experience, all right? But the instructors, at the end of the day, they're there to do a job to get you through your motorcycle test. They have some really good knowledge, but some of them are old timers and some of them have to stick to a syllabus of some kind, all right? But if you watch this video and you don't believe me, look elsewhere, all right? This is really standard practice, and I think even in America where they do the MSF course and things like that, they teach things like the progressive braking, they teach things like 2 fingers on the front brake to control the pressure a lot easier, a lot better. So go ahead, do that research. It's always good to not just take my word for it anyway, all right? Just do as much research as you can on the subject and try it out yourself. When you're out on your ride next, try these techniques out for yourself and hopefully they will help you. But thank you ever so much for watching this one. If this video has helped you out, leave a like, get subscribed. Let me know down in the comment section what you think, as always. And we'll catch you all in the next video. Have a good one. Take care. Ride safe.